Objects of amnesty. The Amnesty movement is composed of people of all nationalities, politics, religions and social views who are determined to work together in defense of freedom of the mind. The spread of dictatorship, the tensions that have resulted from the Cold War, and the increasing cleavage between races of different color, have combined to make state persecution of the individual the gravest social problem of the IOOs. The principal object of amnesty is to mobilize public opinion in defense of those men and women who are imprisoned because their ideas are unacceptable to their governments. It has been formed so that there should be some central, international organization capable of concentrating efforts to secure release of these prisoners of conscience, and to secure worldwide recognition of Articles 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Essentially an impartial organization as regards religion and politics, it aims at uniting groups in different countries working towards the same end, the freedom and dignity of the human mind. Universal of Human Declaration Rights. Article 18. Article R. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship and observance. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference, and to seek, receive and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Chairman's Report. Amnesty was created just over a year ago out of a just anger against man's inhumanity to man. Peter Benson, the founder of this movement, has recalled how one morning, travelling in the tube to work, he read about two Portuguese friends dining in a restaurant in Lisbon. A remark they passed that was critical of the Portuguese government was overheard, and the next thing was that they were arrested and imprisoned for treason against the government. The thought that it was possible to push two ordinary people around in such a way doing nothing else but expressing a criticism of the regime under which they lived, so infuriated Peter Benson that he decided something must be done about it. And so, in consultation with other writers and lawyers, Amnesty has launched in a newspaper article in the London Observer on May 28, 196 tons. In the 12 months since then, knowledge of the work of Amnesty has spread to all corners of the globe. In practically every country, apart from the communist countries, there are individual core groups who are supporters of this movement, which was founded in defense of freedom of opinion and which bases itself on Articles 18 and 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. These articles state that it is the right of every citizen to be free to hold his own political and religious opinions and to express them. There were no dissensions at the United Nations when the declaration was passed. Yet in at least 2/3 of the world today this basic human right is denied. Perhaps the great achievement of Amnesty in its short life is that prisoners of conscience are no longer forgotten. Governments know that it is not possible anymore to throw their citizens into jail without there being inquiries and publicity about their actions. Prisoners know that there are friends in the outside world working on their behalf, and this gives them hope. How has all this been done in so short a space of time? In the first year much has been experimental, but as this report shows, the main methods which have proved successful and on which we are basing our future work are the sending of our own investigators to different countries to make on-the-spot inquiries, the establishment of a threes network, whereby groups of people in Britain and in other countries work for the release of 3 prisoners from the 3 main ideological regions of the world, continual publicity about the plague of prisoners and their families. There are no concrete or tangible terms by which NZ can claim success. If a prisoner is released or a general amnesty proclaimed, idleness and publicity about conditions in a country, we can only note the coincidence. We cannot say that Amnesty was directly responsible. In the 12 months that Amnesty has been working, however, there have been enough coincidences to make us feel that what we are doing is having some influence. In the past year, there have been general or partial amnesties proclaimed in Czechoslovakia, Ireland, France, Ghana, the Sudan, and Yugoslavia, which have set many prisoners free. Individuals on whom amnesty has particularly focused attention, for example, Agostino Neto, Christopher Pay, Henri Echdal, Anderson Ganyile, and others have been set free. The list is tiny compared with the need, but it has at least established one firm fact, that is, that in the world of today where not more than 1/3 of the world's citizens live under governments which accept their right to hold individual convictions, the need for an organization such as Amnesty is painfully and terrifyingly clear. Lionel Elvin. Boa.di, Ta 12z. The Right Reverend the Bishop of Birmingham Professor Richie Calder the Reverend Dr. I. Grunfeld F. Elwyn Jones, Goosey, Sean McBride, S.C. Dr. Eatnest Payne. Ellen Lost Ray. Archbishop Roberts, S.J. Jeremy Thorpe. Chi. Policy Coninit. Lionel Elvin, Chairman. Margaret Archer, Peter Archer, Eric Baker. Peter I. Ensign, Louis Blom Cooper, Hilary Cartwright. Marley Steeds, Leonard Deeds, Colonel Gerald Draper. Alan Evans, Duncan Guthrie, Crystal Marsh, Norman Marsh, Andrew Martin, Hugh O'Shaughnessy. Tom Sargent, Leonard Shapiro. Neville Vincent, Keith Wood. Joint Honorary Secretary S. Peter Benson, Neville Vincent. Head Office Staff Librarian, Crystal Marsh. Technical Advisor, Marley Steeds. Executive Officer, Peggy Crane. Secretaries, Chris Chaffin, Karen von Sissen. Activity S. 1961 to 1962. Amnesties. First year's work has been largely experimental. Originally, it was conceived as a short, sharp Amwell on behalf of those in prison, Mr. Their convictions, rather on the lines or World Refugee Year, which was to run throughout infit. It was soon evident, however, that a more permanent organization was necessary. The walls or the prisons, that not going to fall down at a single, short blast o' the trumpet. Continual pressure and publicity were the only ways of making any impression. Out of necessity, to refire, Amnesty was firmly founded as an international organization, and the Prisoner of Conscience Fund is established as a recognized charity. From the start it was agreed that Amnesty wanted concentrate on two things. Firstly, the building up of a prisoner of conscience or library. Secondly, that it should endeavour to create a network. Local groups, threes, which would undertake to work on behalf of 3 prisoners, 1 each from the main ideological regions or the World 1, communist, capitalist and the newly emergent nations in Africa and Asia. Both these things have been done, together with a great deal more. Enable AMNESTV01 become better known and its work more effective. Building up the library, or under the guidance Crystal Nash, the Amnesty Librarians become a unique repository of information about those imprisoned for their convictions. It is staffed entirely by voluntary help. Foreign newspapers from 8 countries are regularly scanned FBR information about those imprisoned, and these reports are filed. Specific information about each prisoner being transferred to index cards. many organizations and individuals interested in this field of human rights also supply information. In 12 months, the library has accumulated histories of about 1,200 prisoners, and these are much used as a source of information by the press and other interested bodies. Collecting facts, however, is only one part of the library's work. Equally important is the work it does servicing 3 groups by sending them information about their prisoners, providing contact and suggesting ways of making protests effective. Point 1. KRLs. Netin K. He networkons LTS Jaya sell people who have undertaken to K the release of 3 prisoners, one each final the East, the West and the Altai-Asian countries. They ate an essential infrastructure. The Nest-Y movement demonstrate that /fork ing for the freedom 1.1 authorities is not limited only to a few people in a Onden office, in Akin Lai undertaken la, anyone, else here and at any Nate and also archexamic civilizations comes in with lies and a test. All of CR. Thual, irrespect live of the religion, ideology and creedal. Their governance. There are 70 such groups voiking at their lies 1t time a list is given on page. Host of those are in Britain, but groups are also working Australia, Eland, Norway, Sitkdikl, and Sweden. There has been particular enthusiasm to form TFS at their universities. In Oxford Farfarak 12 active groups, at the Univet, are showing increasing interest. In practical terms, this means that the cases are to prisoners incorporated under active investigation, that governments and embassies are continually being lobbied, and 210 human beings and their families know that they are not gotten. Even so, this is only any handful of those in need. Variable conditions make it impossible to lay down hard and fast rules. Trying to release prisoners. Head NICE has now appointed a voluntary UCA, Mrs. Nlali Steeds, as technical advisor to 3s to help coordinate work and provide contacts. One thing has clearly emerged, however, namely that there need be no fear about writing openly to prisoners regarding the steps being taken to obtain their EKs. Even if the letter is confiscated and never reaches him, it will be opened by the government or prison authorities. Realization that the man or woman concerned is not forgotten has often resulted in the prisoner receiving better treatment and an improvement in his conditions. Efforts are also being made to expand the work of 3s to include local publicity about amnesty, money-raising activities, etc. Investigators, in an effort to obtain more detailed information about the state of prisoners and to plead for their release at the highest levels, Amnesty, with financial assistance from certain newspapers and other sources, was able to send out 4 investigators in the early part of 1962. Fear, Lawton Cooper, who went to Liana in January to obtain information about those members of the opposition and others detained under the Preventive Detention Act 1058. He was able to have a personal interview with the Minister of the Interior and to collect useful information. Some of FF Lutitstrith for Filver was published in The Guardian and the Lowest. To Sean McBride, SC, formerly Irish Minister for External Affairs, visited Prague in February to take up the case of Archbishop Barron and others detained or imprisoned by the Czechoslovak government. He discussed the situation with Dr. Jiří Hájek, the Deputy Foreign Minister. Although not allowed to see the Archbishop, he was assured he /fast living in a disused monastery and was well cared for by nuns. M. McTyride was also able to obtain some information or about the conditions of their religious prisoners. C. Neville Vincent, Joint Undersecretary of Amnesty, went to Portugal in February, particularly to intercedeth. The authorities let 5 doctors who were in prison victims of their political belief, although he was unable in the time available to obtain interviews with any ministers. He was received by Cardinal Siragi, head of the Portuguese Catholic hierarchy, and a close friend of Dr. Salazar's there. Cardinal agreed to pass on Vincent's representations to the Prime Minister. D. Prem Clyra, an Indian lawyer and trade unionist, visited East Germany in large to investigate the disappearance from West Germany of a fellow trade unionist, Heinz Branch, and a forestry expert, Dr. Rohrig, and to intercede on behalf of 18-year-old Jurgen Y. Eichert, sentenced to 8 years FBR protesting to the captain of a holiday cruising ship about a sudden change of route. Mr. Clyra had a long interview with the Attorney General of East Germany, who assured him that should Amnesty wish to be represented at Heinz Brandt's trial, every facility would be offered. In the event the trial was held in secret and Brandt sentenced to 13 years hard labour. In addition to the above, Miss Audrey Sander, a young woman barrister, went on behalf of Amnesty to Paris in January to join the Defence Council of Father Daveses. Amnesty and prisoners' income and expenditure account for the to salaries and national insurance, office rent and services, office stationery, printing and publicity. 11. 1, postages. Telephone. /1 advertising and public relations. Travelling expenses. W. 93. Swiss National Section expenses. 71. Investigation expenses. 11. Sundry expenses. 73. 17. Excess of income over expenditure. L. 2,238. 356. 641. SD 111.12.5. 1 to 34.18. 467 14 6 92 17 1 I. 894 8 9 713 9. 1838. 50 145 19 2 1000 and 1910. £7,859.5 Balance sheet at accumulated funds. Excess of income over expenditure. Sundry creditors. S. D. For the period 1,910 383.89. Li, 402.99. We have prepared the above accounts from the books, vouchers and other information supplied, and in our opinion they give a true and fair view of the transactions of the London Policy Committee for the period under review and of the state of affairs as of 31st of May, 1962. 8. Of Conscience Appeal. Period from 27th May 196 to 3th May 1962. By donations and subscriptions. Advertising. 44. Surplus on Christmas cards, etc. 7,510. 140. 209. S. TL. 2200. 27. L. 77,859.56. 3th May 1962. office furniture, sundry debtors, bank and cash, and equipment. Balances. At cost. S. D. 185.25. 1410 £1,202.18.4. £1,402.19.9. 78 South Audley Street, London, W.I. 13th of June, 1962. Howard, Wade and Jacob. Chartered Accountants. 9. Linked with the Systlig, the FLN informal but helpful investigations have also been carried out by several AN 11 ESD supporters visiting different countries on holiday or on business. No one, it is encouraging that, apart from Eastern Germany, there have been a number of releases in the countries visited by our investigators. In June, 962, 152 detainees were released in Ghana. The Czechoslovak government has granted an amnesty affecting an unknown number of prisoners. 3 of the doctors, on whose behalf Neville Vincent went to Portugal, have been released. Father Davies has also been released on grounds of ill health. Commemoration. Or Human R. Guts I.A. Human Rights Day, was commemorated for the first time in this country on December 1961, at a special amnesty service in the crypt of Street Nilet in Instfields and at similar services in Bristol, Edinburgh, Oxford and Plymouth. The climax of the service was the lighting of the amnesty candle by Venus, duty Churchill Hallows, and a vigil by people of many nationalities to guard the candle on the steps of St. Martin's until midnight. James Griffiths, MP, gave the Human Rights Address, and the Reverend Austin Williams, Vicar of St. Martin's, led the ceremony in which Julie Christie, C. Grant and Andrew Cruikshank played important parts. The Reverend John Pellow was responsible for handling the Human Rights Day commemoration on behalf of Amnesty. Publications and publicity. Until the beginning of January 1932, Amnesty published a fortnightly journal, Amnesty, which was mainly concerned with publicizing information about prisoners of conscience. In 1962 it was decided to change to a larger quarterly journal, interspersed with a small newsletter in the months when the quarterly does not appear. This has allowed more scope for articles about the movement's work and concerns. The national press, both in Britain and many countries abroad, have been generous in spreading information about our work, and often taking up particular cases of individual injustice. It was through the generosity of the London Observer that Amnesty was launched on May 28, 1961. Without the help of this paper and the others, Amnesty would not be the established movement it is today. 10. Has devoted Dio Proyas and Milms on its home service to MNS and Silk. The first of these, Liberty to the Captive, took place on March. As part of the Path of Life series, the Say Find 011 Lay 2711, dealt with political prisoners. In addition, the back has given considerable publicity to Anarchist Y. FLHS at TSCSML Wix. An important part of AMN X0/ANEC is 10 encourage people to think deeply about human rights. High the send plans were put in Hamel to hold an international run let once in Ireland in December. In discuss the boundaries of freedom, but, largely owing to lack of funds, this hail to be abandoned. 11,162, Amnesty P1111E1I. A series of conferences on personal freedom in contemporary society. The first of these took place in the Nibleti Fall Temple on January 27th and considered persolial freedom in emergent countries, with particular reference to Ghana and the Sudan. The speakers via 1/R. Anthony /Lyot 1.S. Blom Cooper, Peter Kilner Professors Lee Smith, T.T.F. Gerald Gardner, D.C. 3. T.E. Chair. It was attended by over 2 people. The second conference on Loon 16111 discussed personal freedom in the Marxist Leninist countries. The third, to be held in November, will concern itself with personal freedom in Western Europe. In addition to the above, the officers of Amnesty and volunteers have spoken at a number of meetings throughout the year. Peter Benkinson, in particular, LNTS, visited most of the universities which shown great interest in the movement. CRIST West California RDS. A special amnesty chiasmus cat D was painted in 196 tons, with quotations on freedom in 6 languages. With each batch of 12 sent to Amnesty supporters was enclosed a list of 12 prisoners to whom cards could also be sent. Over 5,000 cards were sold, and a large proportion of these were sent to jails all over the world. Both senders and head office have received a number of replies from prisoners saying that the cards had brought much hope and comfort. In addition to the above activities, increasingly, organizations and individuals from different parts of the world are appealing to Amnesty for help for those imprisoned for their convictions. We have also been able to help some of those seeking asylum abroad. 2. Head Office has been quick to approach embassies and other bodies on behalf of individual prisoners of conscience. It has also arranged deputations, for example, to Her Majesty's government, urging the ratification of those articles of the European Convention of Human Rights dealing with individual right of appeal to the European Commission and the jurisdiction of the European Court. A deputation also acted on the High Commissioner for Rhodesia and Nyasaland to urge the release of restrictees at Gokwe. ANISTY also maintains close liaison with all organizations working in the human rights field, including the International Commission of Jurists, the International Red Cross, International Press Institute, International PEN, UNA, etc., the International Movement. France was the first country where Amnesty took root, although, due to difficult political conditions, the roots have not yet grown deep. On 20 June, 196 tons, a conference on religious persecution was held in Paris, which was attended by spokesmen of the principal fifths. Shortly afterwards, a meeting was convened of the men and women in Western Europe who had responded immediately to the public appeal for amnesty. TH's meeting was held in Luxembourg on 22/23 of July, 1961, and was attended by representatives from France, West Germany, Belgium, Ireland, and Great Britain. During the months which followed, progress was made in forming national sections representative of the main streams of political and religious opinion in Belgium, West Germany, and Ireland. A Swiss group was established in Geneva, and another in Zurich. Another group was founded in Athens, Greece. By the end of the year 1961, wireless reports of the work of Amnesty had led to sufficient enthusiasm in Australia to encourage organisers to call meetings in Sydney and Melbourne. There are now firmly established sections of Amnesty in New South Wales and Victoria, and an increasing number of individual supporters in other states. A provisional committee was formed in New York when Peter Benson was in U.S.A. in September 1961, but it has not been found practical as yet to constitute a single American national section. But there are groups operating in New York, Washington and San Francisco. 12. In January 962 a provisional committee was set up in Amst and that has led to the formation of a Dutch national section. A group of 3 started work in Oslo last autumn, and a national organizer is now finning a Norwegian section. The Swedish section of Amnesty began to Ifinetien in May, and a Swedish translation of Persecution 196 tons was issued in early. Preliminary contacts have been made with those interested in forming national sections in a number of countries, and negotiations are now taking place to secure the all-party backing which is considered an essential prerequisite to the establishment of a section. It is hoped that these negotiations, WLDCH, are proceeding in Canada, Ceylon, Ghana, India, Israel, Mexico and Nigeria, will produce concrete results during the latter part of 1962. Individual supporters are growing in number all over the world. It is not possible to list all the countries here they live, but the London office is in contact with supporters trying to form local groups in Argentina, Congo, Leopoldville, Ethiopia, Jamaica, Malaya and New Zealand. The second international meeting of organisers of national sections and groups is being arranged by the Belgian National Section. It will be held at the historic Château de Mail, at Sigcel just outside Bruges over the weekend 28/30 September. Wherever possible, the London office is encouraging national sections to establish groups of 3 and to get ahead with the work of adopting prisoners of conscience. 3s are at work in Australia, Ireland, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland and USA. Administration. Amnesty is a registered charity, and as such is governed by a board of trustees. General policy is controlled by the Policy Committee, a body composed of 20 people, many of whom are eminent in various walks of life. This meets monthly. The day-to-day running of the movement is in the hands of the joint honorary secretaries, Peter Benson, the founder of the movement, and Neville Vincent, a London barrister _ They are advised by a small executive committee that meets every fortnight. The joint secretaries would like to take this opportunity to express their appreciation of all the work and devotion of Mrs. Peggy Crane and Miss Christine Chattin. 13. The work of Amnesty could never have been undertaken, far less continued, without the generous help of many volunteer workers. If only a few names are mentioned here, it is only because of lack of space. But, in particular, the secretaries would like to thank Eric Baker, in charge of relief work, nurse, Christelle Niash, the librarian, Hugh O'Shaughnessy, Uartley editor, Mrs. Marley Steeds, technical advisor to the 3s, and Mrs. Marnoglin, membership. Secretary. A year's achievements. As the chairman has pointed out, it is impossible to assess Amnesty's achievements in tangible terms. We can never claim that. As a direct result of any action we have taken, a prisoner has been released. There are many other factors involved, but we can note certain coincidences, such as following Amnesty's conference on personal freedom in key emergent countries, the Sudan government proclaimed an amnesty for former ministerial detainees, or following Neville Vincent's trip to Portugal, 3 doctors were released. There have been sufficient coincidences such as these to make us feel that, at least, our efforts have been a contributory cause to these releases. Perhaps the most important achievement of Amnesty, however, has been that without it peoples and governments would today be less aware of how narrow are the boundaries of freedom in at least 2/3 of the world. More people would be languishing forgotten behind prison bars. Fewer people would be so actively concerned with promoting the basic human freedoms of opinion, religion and of expression. the Universal Declaration of Human Rights would be mouldering in the pigeonholes. Since amnesty started in 1961, Gaira law partial amnesties have been proclaimed in Burma, Czechoslovakia, France, Ghana, Greece, Iraq, Ireland, Portugal, South Korea, Spain, Sudan, and Yugoslavia. In addition, a number of individual prisoners, on whose behalf amnesty has intervened, either through head office or through 3 groups, have also been released. Names and addresses of 3 group organisers: L0ND1 Listy Alton, 7 Nyantig Square, V.I. Mr. L. Bindman, T.I. Greenhill, Hampstead High Street, X.W.3. Miss Hilary Cartwright, 2 Mitre Court Buildings, Temple, E.BC.4. Latham. Mr. R. Elton, Guilty N. Service, Exchange Court, Strand, W.T.12. Jill T. Miss Pamela Hart, 67 Lillington G41411, N.I2. Miss C. Heschel, 217 Goldhurst Terrace, North. W.6. Hampstead. Mr. B. Floward, 5 Hanover Terrace, MWS, N.111. I. Miss Barbara Johnston, 29 Ashdale, Iove, Stanmore, Middlesex. Harrow East. Reverend D. H. J1s, 21 Barnewer Gardens, S.W.15. Mr. J. Martin, Barons Court Labour Party, 303 North End Road. W. I4. Barons, Out. Mr. Stuart Morris, Vic Shepherd House, 6 Sensley Street, V. Peace Pledge Union. Mr. P. M. 41 Courtvicle Road, S.W.7. South Kensington. Mr. J. Henry, 6 King's Bench Walk, Temple, E.BC.4. Mr. A. Redhouse, 16 Brim Hill, North Point 2. Mrs. Katrina Robertson, 57 Ladbroke Road, West 11, N. Kensington. Mrs. E. Salthouse, 25 Mervyn Avemy, New Eltham, SKU. Miss A. Sander, 18, T.D. Brompton Road, S.W.7. Mrs. M. Sander, 5 Ovington Gardens, S.W.3. Ms. J. Saxby, 36 St. Mary's Grove, N. Islington Family Service Unit. Miss L. Stevens, Selby House, Ham Common, Richmond, Surrey. Mrs. H. Warner, 18 Abergledy Road, S.W.12. Elf Annie. Lace K. Wilson, 3 Whitefield Road, South. E.O. Provinces. And Scotland. Mr. D. Castleton, 36 Ashford Road, Bromley, Kent. Me Percente. Cooper, Bond Farm, Stone Street, 7 Oaks. Mr. K. Cotman, 75 Rides Hill Road, Guildford, Surrey. Mr. B. Hooper, 67 London Avenue, North End, Portsmouth. T. 15. Mr. I. Lambert, Room 12, 29 Ludgate Hill, London, E.BC.4. Mr. K. Nicholson, Friends School, Saffron Walden, Essex. Mr. W. E. Norman, The Lodge, Shootersway Lane, Berkhampstead. Hearts. Christian Teamwork. Miss M. Adele, I. Albany Road, Hornchurch, Essex. Mr. D. Roberts, Hollyimge, John Ashton, near Bristol. University.S. Mr. B. J. Wicker, 304 Vicarage Road, Birmingham, 4. Kiel, Ms. Jocelyn Ryder Smith, Students' Union, Kakuni. Versity, Staffs. LSE, Mr. M. McGowan, Students' Union, Keele University. Oxford, Miss Bridget Marsh, Lady Margaret Hall, Oxford. Sheffield, Mr. Zero. Elman, Curator of Field Laboratories, Department of Physiology, The University, Western Bank, Sheffield 2. St Andrews, Mr. J. A. Black, 24 South Street, St Andrews, Fife. Abroad. Australia, Mr. B. Nulgai, 6 Fernkill Court, Torak, S.D.2. Neilborn, Victoria. Mr. A. F. Hodge, 30 Phoenix Street, Lane Cove North.S.W. Mr. L. M. Oppenheimer, 55 Eastern Avenue, Dover. Elates, NSW. Mr. and Rolls, 194 Waterworks Road, Hobart. Tasmania. Island, Mrs. Karen O'Donovan, 16 Oaklands Drive, Ratga. Dublin, 6. Norway, Mr. J. L. Mawinkel, Orientering, Folkets VT, Oslo. Switzerland, Mrs. Frances Phelps Benry, Avenue d'Apples, 5 bis. Lausanne. USA, Mr. Louis Carliner, 3112 Rodiman Street, North.W. Washington 8, D.C. Sweden, Fröken Ellis Swedberg, Dr. Facilias Gata 42, Göteborgs V. You can subscribe to Amnesty for a year. Local organizations can affiliate for F2 a year, national organizations for F5 a year. Right IOAM, Amnesty, Imita Court Buildings. Temple, London, E.BC.4. SN 7867. 16.